Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a hot minute and today's topic is going to be my January recap, and considering that it's February 11th, this is super late. And I don't even have an excuse. It's been the Seattle Snowmageddon right now if you've been watching the news for the Northwest. And so I've had 3 full 8-hour days of work canceled. And I could have been filming during any of them, but I chose not to. So I have no excuse other than I just didn't feel like filming. But I have 9 or 10 videos that I have outlined. So today I'm just going to be filming, and then I'm going to have a whole bunch of videos for you guys. So look forward to that. I'm going to take a video with my phone and insert it here. So this is the view out my window. You can see the reflection of my ring light right there. Oh, I got a ring light for Christmas from my husband. So hopefully things will be better, but you can see it's nice and snowy. So I'm wearing my husband's shirt. It's snowing like crazy, as you just saw in the insert. And he is delivering today. He's a delivery driver, and they don't take snow days. So I've been a little worried about him all day. So I'm wearing his shirt to make myself feel better. Plus it's warm and cozy, and he doesn't wear the shirt because it's too warm for him. So might as well get some use out of it. Okay, books I read in January. This is kind of a random list because it was, from now on my lists are probably going to be super random because they're going to be just like whatever I can get from the library. I put stuff on hold and it comes in when it comes in because a lot of the stuff I want to read has super long wait lists. So there's not necessarily going to be a theme because I never know when stuff's going to get here. So the first book that I read, no, this wasn't the first book I read. Was it? No. Okay, well, the first book I'm going to talk about that I read in January is Fake Blood by Whitney Gardner. Someday I'll be able to figure this out. This is why I can't curl my hair. Because when I'm looking in the mirror, I can't figure out which way I need to twist stuff, and it just goes super awry. And because stuff's backwards in my camera, or like on my monitor, I'm like, is this making it better? Is this making it better? Do I need to move it this way? Do I need to move it this way? So, anyway, Fake Blood by Whitney Gardner. Now, this is a graphic novel. And I really enjoyed the writing style, but the art style. So the premise of the book is, nope, again, backwards. The premise of the book is this kid, school's just back in after summer break. He feels like an absolute nobody. His friends are all like, I climbed this mountain. I grew 6 inches. And he's like, I'm still the same size. And I sat in my house reading books, and I'm a nerd, and nobody likes me, and I have nothing interesting about myself. And so he's feeling really underwhelmed by his own worth and doesn't think there's anything interesting about himself. Like, why would people care to know anything about him? And he has this huge crush on this girl who has an obsession with vampires. She's always reading like books about vampires and watching TV shows about vampires, and she's like super into it. So he decides to low-key pretend to be a vampire to make himself more interesting. And hilarity ensues. Of course it doesn't go as planned because I don't really know how he thought that would turn out eventually, but yeah. So I really enjoyed it, but it was just a really entertaining, fun, kind of doofy read, which I think those are all intentional. You know, it's supposed to be kind of doofy. It's supposed to be really lighthearted and kind of just, it is what it is. And so I really enjoyed it. It took me like an hour and a half to read the whole thing, even though it's like 500 pages or whatever. So that was again, not the first book I read, but the first book I'm going to talk about. So the next book I want to talk about is another graphic novel, and this one is Paper Girls, Volume 5. So I've talked about the other volumes. These are written by Brian K. Vaughan, and then the artists are Cliff Chiang and Matthew Wilson. I'm not actually sure I'm saying the last name Chiang right, but that's what it looks like. So there you go. Um, I was super excited about this one because I'd heard nothing but good things about the Paper Girl series, and I had not really been into it up until this point because the stories just seemed so random and nothing made sense. And I was like waiting for things to start to coagulate. Ooh, that doesn't sound right. To cohese, to compile into a story that actually made sense, so I could figure out like where we were going. And some of the pieces started to kind of make sense. You kind of got like flashbacks now of like, oh, so this is how this thing back there happened. I get it now. But then at the end, they threw in a bunch of new stuff, and it's like, no, I'm kind of to the point where I want the story to start actually like fitting together, not more random pieces that we don't know how they fit in. And I just don't care about any of these characters. And so I don't know that I'm going to read the rest of the series because I don't even know when the next book or volume, I guess, is supposed to come out. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm over it. Already, there was enough time between when I'd finished reading the first 4 and when volume 5 came out that I was like, did I finish reading the last one? I don't remember how they got this weapon, and I don't remember, like, I couldn't remember what was going on, so I actually ended up having to reread, like, the second half of volume 4, and I don't, like, I read these digitally, so when I went back to read it, it was on the last page, so apparently I got to the last page, but I have no memory of the second half of that at all. So it's like so random that I can't even remember what happened because it's like reading a book in gibberish almost. So yeah, I was kind of, I rated it like 3 stars on Goodreads, and I gave the other ones like 2 stars because I was like, well, there's sort of a story in this one, which is better than the other ones, but still not enough to keep me interested. Like at this point, I don't find any of the characters likable. There's not enough going on that I understand for me to be like, ooh, this is interesting. I want to keep going. Like, so I'm kind of bummed about that. 'Cause it's the first graphic novel series that I started reading. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And I was like, this is terrible. Is it graphic novels? Is it me? Is it just the specific one I don't like? Even though this is like the most highly reviewed ones I've heard about. So I am really glad that I read Fake Blood because I really enjoyed that, and it is in the graphic novels format. So I don't think it's specifically graphic novels that I don't enjoy, although they aren't my favorite because there's just not enough time and space for like a really fleshed out story just because you have like, oh, you have 200 pages, but there's like 20 words on each page. So, yeah, so it's not my favorite, but it is fun for just like a quick read or whatever, but I just did not enjoy the series. Sorry, I keep watching the snow. So this is actually legitimately the first book I read this year, and it's The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm by Christopher Paolini. Now, I was super excited about this. I read the entire Aragon series many years ago. Like, I remember buying the first 3 books in paperback, and the 4th one had just come out, so it was still hardback only. And I finished the first 3 books and was like, do I wait a year until the last one comes out in paperback, or do I just buy it in hardback? And I broke down and just bought it in hardback because I couldn't even wait to find out what happened. And then I was disappointed by the end of the series. I just didn't like the way it concluded. Personally, I felt it was a little more bitter than sweet. I like a happy ending. And like I said, if everything wraps up in a neat little bow, it doesn't feel very realistic, and I'm not satisfied with. But this was too frayed, too raw for me to personally like. And I totally get that is an absolute personal thing. Like, that is my personal preference for when I'm reading books. So it's not that I thought it was poorly written or anything. It was just way more of a downer than I personally cared for. It's like the end of The Departed, where literally everybody dies. And you're like, well, I guess the bad guy died too, so it's a win. Anyway, yeah, so I was excited about this book because I thought, okay, great. Maybe some of the stuff I was kind of unhappy with at the ending of the series will be addressed and kind of worked through in this book, because basically it's a year after the last book has ended. And now I don't really want to say too much about it, because if you haven't read the Aragon series, the Inheritance Cycle, I don't want to like spoil it, but now Aragon's trying to like establish some stuff. And well, first of all, so this is the last book in the Inheritance Cycle. It is 849 pages. And this is the first book in the Inheritance Cycle. Now, they definitely get longer as you go, obviously. Each book is significantly longer, but this one is still 491 pages. So it's not like this is a, dainty book either. So I was expecting something epic. I get it from the library, and it's 220 pages, and it's like this big. It looks like a children's book, like a second grade chapter book or something. I was like, what? And then it turns out that it's literally just 3 random short stories, and there's like a couple of pages in between that's like, and Aragon was frustrated with all of the like administrative work he had to do when he really just wanted to be out doing stuff with his hands. And now Angela with her story. And I was like, we have not furthered the story of Aragon at all. At all. And this book is not very long. So it's been 7 years since the last book was written. Or published, I guess. Who knows when it was written. And in 7 years, he wrote 220 pages. And they're like half pages. It's literally about this wide, and it's only like this tall. So I was super frustrated. I don't feel like this should have been, like, it has Aragon in the title, and it was touted as being like, where are they now sort of a thing. And that is absolutely not what it is. So that's why I was bummed. So there you go. Also in January, I listened to The Well of Ascension. This is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. I've now actually at this point finished all 3 of them, and I did all 3 of them audiobook. I really like the narrator. It was a little weird because the narrator is male and the main character is female. So that was a little odd, but he does an okay job. I'm not super crazy about the way he does her voice, but it's not terrible. So, and like overall, it's a very solid performance, and I really enjoyed it enough to do all 3 of the books, audiobook version. So, I'm back. In case you notice my hair is wet and I look a little different. My husband got home and we had a snowball fight with our dog. Like, the 3 of us had a snowball fight. The dog didn't really fight back, but he enjoyed it. So anyway, what I was saying was, I really enjoyed the second book of the Mistborn trilogy, The Well of Ascension. It really acted like a filler book. It kind of bridged the first and the third, but it didn't feel like that at all. Like, there's enough really pressing stuff going on that the entire book kept me on the edge of my seat, which was super impressive because I did the audiobook version and it was like 27 hours or something like that. So it's not a short book. And they kind of fix some stuff, but in the process make other things worse. And that's why it's like a filler book, because not a lot of things actually get like sorted out and fixed. But yeah, liked it a lot. Brandon Sanderson, good job. I am impressed. So the next book I also did audiobook version, and that is Archenemies by Marissa Meyer. It's the second book in the Renegades trilogy. And I know what you're thinking. Stephanie, you didn't like the first book. Why are you reading the second book? And that is an excellent question. And the reason I did the second book is because a lot of people liked the first book. And I had heard that the second book was better than the first. So I thought, okay, maybe it's better. Maybe I'll like it. Spoiler alert, I did like it more than the last one, but I think I gave it like a 3-star instead of a 2-star rating, so I still didn't really like it. She has not drawn the characters in a way that I find interesting or believable. They're just so one-sided and focused and one-dimensional that it makes the book predictable and it doesn't make the characters interesting. There was a little more kind of questioning what is ethically right in this book instead of specifically, oh, the other side is purely evil because I don't like them or whatever. They've wronged me in some way, but not enough to actually make the book interesting. My 2 cents. I will probably still do the third one because I like to finish stuff. This book definitely did not redeem the trilogy for me like I was hoping it would. I did another graphic novel. I did another. Yeah. I read another graphic novel this month, and that is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wong. And I read this book because a lot of people had recommended it. It was on like one of the top 10 middle grade books of the year list that I think KCLS put out. And so I was like, oh, okay, interesting. The premise is this prince likes to dress in dresses at night and goes out under a pseudonym. And he finds a struggling dressmaker to make him dresses. And so it's him trying to like come to terms with he needs to be the prince his family needs him to be, but at the same time his real person is this like other side of him, and how does he like merge the two basically, or like reconcile this dichotomy. And I don't want to give too much away, but I was very disappointed in the way things wrapped up. Remember earlier when I was talking about how I like things to come to a satisfying end, but I like there to be kind of a fight for it. This had a satisfying end, but there was no fight for it, which makes it not a satisfying end, I guess. Yeah, things just were too rosy. Like there was no struggle in this book. So when he overcame, it really wasn't overcoming anything because there was never really any challenge. And so I found that really disappointing. And I get that it's a graphic novel, and again, you don't have the amount of time that you would have in a normal novel to kind of develop the story and everything, just because you are limited on the number of words on a page and everything, and without making it 10,000 pages long, you're just going to be way more limited. But I just felt like the story was really building to something and then just kind of like fell off and didn't really follow through like it should have. So that was kind of disappointing. I mean, it again took me like an hour and a half to read or something, so I wasn't like, oh, I've wasted all this time, but I just felt like the book could have been so much more. So the last book that I read, you guys are going to laugh at me, it's How to Pack, Travel Smart for Any Trip by, okay, she is from India, and I don't know how to pronounce her name, so I'm going to apologize in advance, but it looks like Hitha Palepu, I hope. If not, I'm so sorry that I butchered your name. She is kind of, I mean, I don't know this about her fame or anything. I'm just, from reading the book, I got the feeling that she's kind of like a Con Marie of packing and talking.
Just make that word up.
Con Marie?
Yeah.
No, it's Marie Kondo's style of like
Is that a person?
Yeah. So Marie Kondo is her name. And she has put together a method of how to tidy your home called the KonMari method. You've never heard of her? She's a person where you hold the item. If it sparks joy, you get to keep it. If it doesn't, you toss it. Well, you donate it. She's got a show on Netflix. Remember I told you Hannah has thrown away like 17 grocery, or like, not 17 grocery bags, but the big black garbage bags full of clothes after she watched the Netflix show? None of this is ringing a bell?
Not even a little bit at the beginning.
Well then, apparently my husband lives under a rock.
That's true.
Okay, well anyway, so she kind of has a similar approach in packing. But yeah, so she basically is like, if something is like your premier piece, if it's like the thing that makes you feel the sassiest, the best, you really love it, then you can pack it. If you don't feel that way, then don't. And so she goes through like the different categories of like, you probably will need a dress. You'll probably need, this. And within each category, you're supposed to find your like premier item. Anyway, we're going on a trip in March, so next month. And we didn't have any luggage that was carry-on luggage. I have this huge suitcase that I bought years ago when you could still check luggage for free. So I got these backpack carry-on bags that they're like the regulation size carry-on. And I'm like, okay, we're going for 8 days. I need to be able to get 8 days worth of stuff in a backpack, basically. So I've been doing a little bit of research on how to pack. And I thought her book was interesting. There's only like 75 pages. And again, it's like this big. So nothing major. I read it in like, I think less than an hour. So it was a super easy read, but there was nothing really groundbreaking in there. I mean, there was a couple of things where she kind of lays out the differences between the different styles of suitcases and explains like the difference, like not the difference physically, like, oh yeah, I get the difference between a hard side and a soft side, but explains why you would want a hard side versus a soft side and like what the drawbacks are for each and that sort of a thing. So I thought that was interesting. So there was definitely little tidbits that I got from it, but it was nothing like groundbreaking. I wasn't like, oh yes, I'm so glad I read this book because now I'll be able to pack like, I probably could have figured out to only pack the things I really love in each category. And she did talk about how to fold stuff and there were diagrams, but my brain does not work that way. And I could not suss out what she was describing. Like some stuff was obvious, but she was doing like jackets and you were folding one sleeve into the other sleeve and then like pulling them through or something. And it was legit like origami style folding. And I was like, okay. That is not a fault of her. There was no other way for her to do it into the book. That is a fault of me not being able to properly interpret that information. So, and finally this month, a book I did not finish. And not just like, oh, I didn't get to the end before the end of the month. I actually returned it to the library because I was like, and that I was really bummed. It's Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I had heard so many good things about it. It sounded so interesting. I started the book and there's like a preface or whatever, and it was so interesting. And I was like, yes, this book sounds amazing. And it kind of tapered off in the middle, and it was like you were watching these two people be slowly corrupted. And well, really this one person be slowly corrupted. And I just don't enjoy that sort of thing. It makes me really uneasy. And that was like, I don't know if there was more to the book at the end, but at that point, the whole point of the book was just watching this kid slowly lose his humanity, basically. And like I said, that makes me really uncomfortable. I've seen it in some movies and stuff, and I just am not a fan of that sort of a theme. So I was like, I've had this book for like 3 weeks now, and I haven't read a single page in the last 2 weeks because I'm just not into it. So I admitted that I probably wasn't going to finish it, and instead of letting it totally jam up my reading, I just returned to the library and moved on. So I probably will not be finishing Scythe. Maybe someday if I'm really bored, I'll come back around to it. But right now, I've got so many other things I would much rather read. So anyway, guys, those are the books I read in January. It was a pretty good reading month. I mean, 3 of the books were graphic novels, and one of them was like a 75-page book on how to pack. So kind of cheated because there were a lot of really short, really easy to read books. And one of them was a novella. But I read a lot of things. I hope you are staying safe and dry and warm. And until next time, happy reading. But in my mouth. And they were just like really weird and really rambly and rambly like this video. Oh yeah, okay, I get that. What? Sure, okay. Oh no! Oh dear. Stop it. Oh. Someone is very loudly eating salad next to me. Basically like, that's alright, I was in the middle of a sentence there.
I don't need to work. Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Rude. Why did I invite you to hang out with me? Why did I let you move in when we got married? I'm getting faces right now.